It's the stuff of true crime dramas, a young innocent woman plagued by a series of disturbing events that culminate in a horrific assault. But as investigators dug deeper, a very different picture began to emerge. This is the story of Eleanor Ellie Williams and the complex web of lies she wove, leaving many wondering what motivated her to do so. Ellie Williams's childhood was the epitome of idyllic. She grew up in Walney Island, a peaceful community just off Barrow-in-Furness, Cumbria. Her family was well respected by the townsfolk and comprised a caring mother, kind stepfather, elder sister, and brother. Ellie's mother and grandmother were known for their active involvement in community projects and their unwavering kindness towards others. Ellie's upbringing on Walney Island seemed to be peaceful and unremarkable. However, as Ellie entered high school, her behavior took a turn for the worse, and her friends started to notice something was amiss. Ellie began skipping class, cutting off her friends, and getting involved in drugs. One friend even saw visible injuries on Ellie's neck and collarbone, which raised concerns about her safety, but the worst was yet to come. Between 2016 and 2020, Ellie accused numerous innocent men of sexual assault, manslaughter, and even attempted murder, allegations that destroyed all their lives to an unspeakable point. The motive behind Ellie's horrible allegations remains a mystery to this day. Ellie's victim spree dates back to a fateful night when she was just 16 years old. It was October 2017, and she had been hanging out with friends at Cameron Bibby's house, chit-chatting and consuming alcohol. About an hour after arriving, Ellie was already intoxicated. She began vomiting and eventually ended up collapsing on the floor. Bibby, worried for Ellie's safety, contacted her sister, asking if she could be taken home, while one of the other friends called her mother. He placed Ellie in the chair near his front door, but she fell to the ground and began shouting for help and claiming that she had been sexually assaulted. Her family rushed her to the hospital, where she proceeded to accuse Bibby of drugging and sexually assaulting her. That did not stop there. She also made a public post on Facebook. Following allegations made by Ellie, Bibby was arrested and released on bail. However, his arrest was only the beginning of a nightmare he would face. As the Justice for Ellie movement gained traction in their community, Bibby's reputation was dragged through the mud, making it difficult for him to find work and live a normal life. He was forced to wait 6 months before finally receiving news that no further legal action would be taken. However, the damage to his reputation had already been done, and the effects of Ellie's false accusations would continue to haunt him for years to come. Ellie's web of false accusations continued to expand beyond Cameron Bibby, ensnaring innocent individuals in her disturbing claims. She included elaborate and disturbing claims of sexual exploitation and human trafficking, using a second phone provided by Protective Services. She fabricated false names and messages, inducing sexual conversations and taking screenshots to make it seem like she was being targeted by traffickers. One of her targets was local business owner Mohammed Ramzan, who she accused of grooming her since she was barely a teenager. Ellie claimed that she had been taken to Amsterdam and Ibiza by Ramzan and forced to work in the brothel as a prostitute, and even being sold at auction for 25,000 euros. But as evidence emerged during the trial, it became clear that Ellie's shocking claims were nothing but pure fiction. Phone and bank records exposed that the accused Ramzan was in the UK at the exact time Ellie claimed to have been held captive in Amsterdam. On the other hand, Ellie was indeed in Amsterdam, but her sister and boyfriend were with her the entire time, and they testified that she never left their sight. When confronted with travel documents, Ellie tried to pivot to a new falsehood, alleging that she had been forced to Blackpool instead. However, detectives quickly saw through her lies, finding that Ellie's movements in Blackpool were limited to buying some chocolate, milk, and pot noodles, and staying in a hotel room for the night until she left around 10:40 a.m. in the morning. The extent of Ellie's deceit was laid bare for all to see, and her credibility was completely destroyed in the eyes of the court. Ramzan was not the only one who found himself embroiled in a nightmare that will haunt him for the rest of his life. Jordan Trengrove's life was turned upside down when he was accused of a crime he didn't commit. The nightmare began when Ellie accused him of sexual assault at her flat in Steamer Street, resulting in his arrest and imprisonment pending trial. But the consequences of her false claims did not end there. Trengrove's home was vandalized with degrading words, making him the target of protests and marches in his town after a Facebook post about the case went viral. The pressure became too much for Trengrove, and he attempted to take his own life in August 2020. It's hard to imagine the toll that Ellie's accusations have taken on the innocent people she has targeted. Her victims seem to not have an end. For Oliver Gardner, a single phone call from the Cumbria police upended his life. He was accused by Ellie of sexual assault, despite only having briefly met her once. The shock of the accusation proved too much for Gardner, and he attempted to take his own life. As a result, he was sanctioned under the Mental Health Act. Gardner's experience sadly was not unique. The impact of her false claims on the accused was devastating, with many driven to the brink of despair. However, the situation changed dramatically in May 2020 during the pandemic, when Ellie made a series of social media posts claiming that she had been abused by an Asian grooming gang. These posts included photos of Ellie with severe bruises, a black eye, and an injured finger. The posts quickly went viral, and a nationwide Justice for Ellie campaign was launched, gaining over 100,000 members on Facebook. Many people felt that the police were not doing enough to help Ellie, leading to protests calling for justice in her case. What they did not know, however, was that Ellie was already on bail after being charged with 7 counts of perverting the course of justice. On the evening of May 19, 2020, Ellie was reported missing, and shortly thereafter was seen in a field near her home. When she was found by police, Ellie had numerous injuries to her face and body, including a swollen shut eye and a partially severed finger. They also discovered a rucksack with a bank card in her name. Ellie's initial story was that she had been taken in a silver Audi to an address in Barrow, where she was repeatedly assaulted by several Asian men. She also said that one of her attackers had used a sharp implement to inflict one of her injuries. However, when police looked into the alleged location, they found it to be vacant for 2 years, and no one of Asian origin was known to have lived there. The evidence against Eleanor Williams was mounting, and the CCTV footage of her buying a hammer was the final nail in the coffin of her fabricated story. In the footage, she was seen wearing an Adidas bag and headphones while using the self-service till to buy the hammer and a bottle of water along with some additional purchases. Her purchase of the very weapon that matched her bruises was a damning piece of evidence, further compounded by the fact that the hammer was found near her home with her blood and DNA on it. The pathology report on her injuries also raised concerns about the credibility of her account. The report stated that her injuries were not consistent with being assaulted by others, but rather were consistent with being self-inflicted. This revelation, combined with other evidence, led to the conclusion that Ellie had not only fabricated the story of the assault, but had caused the injuries to herself. In her attempt to support her false allegations, Ellie claimed to have been trafficked for years, and even sought to create a fake alibi for the hammer used to injure herself by asking her sister to lie to the solicitors. She also alleged that she had been taken to adult parties from as young as 13 in various locations, including Leeds, Bradford, Halifax, and Preston, where she was forced for sexual intercourse with older men. However, when the authorities contacted more than 20 women Ellie claimed were present at the parties, they all denied being there. The prosecution asserted that Ellie had either known these girls from school or found their details online in her efforts to fabricate her story. It was a web of lies that had unraveled, leaving no doubt that Ellie's claims were entirely unfounded. As Ellie's story began to crumble under scrutiny, she eventually issued an apology through her legal team. In a letter that was read out in court, Ellie expressed remorse for her actions, acknowledging that she had made mistakes and that she was sorry for them. She admitted to being young and confused, but did not outright confess to guilt. Nonetheless, her apologies suggested that she was aware of the wrongs she had committed and was willing to take responsibility for them. The complexity of Ellie's case was further revealed when Dr. Lucy Bacon, a forensic psychiatrist, diagnosed her with complex post-traumatic stress disorder resulting from childhood trauma. Dr. Bacon suspected that Ellie had experienced sexual abuse in her childhood, something that Ellie had vaguely referred to in their meetings. She also noted that Ellie had learned to, quote, keep up a facade to hide her emotions, a typical response to trauma. She seemingly displayed all the hallmark symptoms of the disorder, including suicidal thoughts and substance abuse. However, when Ellie was sentenced to 8.5 years in jail, the judge stated that there was no conclusive evidence of the diagnosis. He did acknowledge that there were, quote, clear overtones of difficulty in her childhood, but there was, quote, little clarity over what those difficulties may have been. Meanwhile, Ellie's mother, Allison, expressed her heartbreak and disbelief at the situation, stating that the person portrayed in the media was not the daughter she knew. Despite acknowledging that Ellie had lied, she believed that her daughter was simply trying to be heard. On the other hand, Ellie's sister Lucy had a different story to tell. Lucy recounted a harrowing incident that took place at a bar, where one of the men had been harassing Ellie. Some of their friends had intervened and warned him off. Later, while leaving a nearby takeaway, the same man grabbed Ellie outside and tried to take her away, but Ellie resisted and managed to escape with her sister. However, when Lucy saw Ellie the following weekend, she was black and blue with injuries. One former high school friend of Ellie had a different take on the situation. She speculated that Ellie may have gotten herself into a lot of debt due to her drug use, and that she had made up a false story to try to escape her predicament. According to this theory, Ellie felt that the only way to resolve her problems was to invent a new story and spread it on social media. Her disappearance on May 19, 2020 was not the first instance of her going missing. She had a history of illegal substance use and was frequently found by police in an altered state, often far from home, in locations such as Morecambe, Lancaster, and Preston in the northwest of England. During the period of 2019 to 2020, her mother reported her missing 32 times. Despite the speculations, a senior investigator refuted the idea that Ellie was involved in drug trafficking, saying that she only began to go missing after detectives suspected that she was lying. Additionally, the police had thoroughly investigated every missing episode and found no evidence to support any criminal activity. It seemed that the possibility of Ellie being a compulsive liar cannot be ruled out. Some of the lies made up were easily disprovable, but there was no explanation for why she made the false allegations. Even her closest friends and family members struggled to discern the truth, as her mother and sister had opposing beliefs regarding her guilt. Without an explanation from Ellie, it may be impossible to fully comprehend her motives for the fabrication of such intricate tales. It is evident, however, that her deceit caused immense pain and suffering to innocent individuals whose lives were forever damaged by her false accusations. The case of Eleanor Williams highlights the damage that false accusations can cause. It is important to take all allegations seriously, but it is equally important to thoroughly investigate them and ensure that they are based on credible evidence. What do you think could have driven her to create such elaborate stories? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.